Have you ever wondered what really holds countries and global institutions together? Or what tears them apart? It's not armies, it's not even laws. It's something much quieter, but way more powerful: belief. So today, we're going to dive into this incredible concept called political legitimacy. To really get a grip on this, let's start with a high-stakes clash that played out on the world stage during a moment of global crisis. And the institution right at the center of it all? The World Health Organization, the WHO. So back in early 2020, as the COVID-19 pandemic was exploding across the globe, the WHO came under some really intense fire. Leading the charge was the US president at the time, Donald Trump. He accused the organization of totally failing in its response, and eventually, he announced he was pulling the US out. But hold on, that was far from the only voice out there. Other world leaders, like Germany's Angela Merkel and Canada's Justin Trudeau, they rushed to defend the WHO, saying its role was absolutely vital. China's president Xi Jinping even praised its major contribution. It was a complete and total split. So think about this. You've got this crucial global institution right in the middle of a once-in-a-century pandemic, and you're hearing these completely opposite takes on it. Why did this war of words matter so much? I mean, what was really at stake here? What was actually being fought over? Well, the answer to that whole puzzle lies in one of the most important ideas in all of political science: legitimacy. This wasn't just an argument. This was a battle for the very legitimacy of the WHO, and getting your head around this concept is the key to understanding how power really works. Okay, so what is it exactly? Well, to put it simply, legitimacy is the public's belief that an authority, whether that's a government or an organization like the WHO, has the right to rule. And that word belief is everything here. It's not about having the biggest army or the strictest laws. It's about whether people actually accept your right to be in charge. And this is a super important point. We have to be really clear that legitimacy is not the same thing as legality. An institution can follow every single rule in the book, be perfectly legal, but if people don't believe in it, it's just not legitimate. And you could have the opposite too. An institution could be seen as totally legitimate by the public, but maybe it bends or breaks a few laws along the way. They are two very different things. So where does this powerful belief even come from? It's definitely not about just liking a policy here or there. No, real legitimacy is something much deeper, something that gets built up over a long, long time. There's this political scientist, David Easton, who came up with a really brilliant way to think about this. He called it a reservoir of goodwill. Just picture that. It's like a bank account, but instead of money, it's filled with public trust that an institution has earned over the years. And this reservoir gets filled by two different kinds of support. First, you've got what's called specific support. That's the flimsy stuff, liking one decision they made this week. It can disappear tomorrow. But then there's diffuse support. Now that's the good stuff. That's the deep, solid faith in the institution itself. And when you have a big reservoir full of that diffuse support, you can mess up. You can make an unpopular decision and survive because people still fundamentally believe in you. Okay, so here's the really crucial takeaway from all this. Because legitimacy is just a belief, something that exists in all of our minds, it is not set in stone, not at all. It's constantly being fought over, shaped, and defended out in the open. It's basically a battle for what we believe. So how does this battle actually play out? Well, researchers have this idea that most of us are what they call cognitive misers. And that just means, look, when it comes to something as complicated as a global organization, we don't have time to become experts, right? So instead, we take mental shortcuts to form our opinions. And because we rely on these shortcuts, we're actually pretty open to being influenced. So who's out there trying to influence us? Well, you've got all sorts of players. You have populist politicians, just like we saw in our example. You have NGOs who might be cheering an institution on or calling it out. You see leaders of rising powers who are questioning whether the whole system is fair. And of course, you've got mainstream politicians and the institutions themselves all trying to tell their side of the story. I know this might all sound a little academic, right? Reservoirs of goodwill, cognitive misers. But the stakes here are absolutely massive. Why does this battle for our belief matter so much in the real world? It's because without legitimacy, an institution is basically powerless. It just can't work. Think about it. If people in governments stop believing you have the right to make rules, they're just going to stop following them. You'll see protests, countries will pull their funding, they'll threaten to walk away, and suddenly, that organization's ability to solve the huge global problems it was built for, like a pandemic, it just vanishes.
And this is the reality of the situation. Public confidence, which is a great way to measure legitimacy, is almost always split. That reservoir of trust, it's often not as full as it needs to be. And that's what makes these institutions so vulnerable. When a political leader launches an attack, they're not starting from scratch. They're tapping into that existing doubt, trying to drain that reservoir even more.
So we'll leave you with this thought. Legitimacy, it isn't just some dusty term in a textbook. It's the invisible glue that holds our world together. It's what makes cooperation possible. Honestly, it's the difference between order and chaos, between compliance and defiance, and it all boils down to a belief. So when an institution loses your trust, what have they truly lost? They've lost everything. They've lost the very foundation of their power.